So I read a book recently that opened my eyes. And I realized that in the media, it's so easy to say it was hackers. It was hackers that stole this or hackers that did this. And that's who we want to blame right away. And you hear it everywhere in movies, television, and of course, news, when that's not necessarily the case. And my eyes were opened recently, and all in part to Kim Crawley, who has put together a book through O'Reilly Press, Hacker Culture A to Z, a fun guide to the people, ideas, and gadgets that made the tech world. And Kim joins us on Tech Talk Radio. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Andy.
Kim, when did you really realize that the term hacker was applied generally across the board to everything from people who can kind of fix things and work with things to cyber criminals?
I think when I was a teenager, I believed the colloquial meaning of hacker, which people associate the term with cyber criminal, and that's usually what the media goes with.
Yeah.
I think in my 20s, as my life started to turn in the direction that my career went in, that's when I started getting my feet wet as far as understanding hacker culture is concerned. So, and I'm a little bit older than I look, just a little bit, not much.
I'm as old as I
So,
look, which is pretty old.
so I wasn't in my 20s literally yesterday, but
Yeah.
yeah, the origin of the word hacker is really quite fascinating, and I do mention it in my book, Hacker Culture A to Z. So the origin actually dates back to the 1960s and to MIT's Tech Model Railroad Club, which was a bunch of nerds who mainly tinkered around with model trains and whatnot, but they also played around with electronics and with the computers that existed in the 1960s. And the 1960s was long before the personal computer.
Oh, yeah.
So the computers that people used back then had to be shared with a lot of other people. And of course, MIT, being one of the top tech schools, had their own PDP 10 and the big IBM. Some of them were mainframes, some of them were mini computers.
Mm-hmm.
But mini computer would be a misnomer to people today because it's not a small computer. It meant not a room-sized computer, a refrigerator-sized computer. So anyway, so these extremely nerdy people, if they came up with a clever trick, they called that a hack. So if you were able to do those things, you were a hacker. So my understanding of the word hacker and the understanding in hacker culture in general is someone who finds new and inventive uses of technology that could sometimes be harmful. So if you use technology to harm, you're a cyber attacker. So, you can be a hacker and a cyber attacker. But yeah, there's a lot more nuance and complexity to the term than lay people are aware of.
Now, Kim, we hear a lot about dark web, which, right away, that's what we picture. We think of Mr. Robot, and some of those areas that Sam Esmail captured so well. Um, is there really a dark web for people people listening that have never gone to that area? Is there?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've been paid by banks to go on there and to look for evidence of crimes against them. So the dark web actually is built on technology that was actually developed by the US government. Well, not directly, but by US government agencies.
Right. Right.
So there are proxy networks. So the more popular one is called Tor, as in the onion router. And then a less popular one is called I2P. But if you connect to either of these networks, you can access the normal part of the web through a Tor browser or a web browser specifically for I2P. You need a special web browser in order to access this. But the parts of the web or the internet that you cannot access without those proxy networks, that is what we call the dark web. Well, the web part is called the dark web. You can call the internet part in general the dark net.
Now, the book
So,
the book
This,
kind of goes
yeah,
into this, doesn't it?
absolutely. So the existence of this technology in and of itself is perfectly legal. Just as my lighter is perfectly legal, but committing arson with it isn't. So people do use the anonymity or relative anonymity, nothing is perfect, to they do take advantage of that to commit crimes. So there are sites on the dark web where people sell illegal drugs and malware and stuff like that, and some like really illegal stuff that's much worse than those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've only gone to the places with the more mild illegal things, so like illegal drugs, malware.
Mhm.
And some of the lawful uses, like a lot of mainstream websites actually have a version that's only accessible by Tor. I think Facebook is one of them. I think there's one for BBC News. So if one lawful application of these technologies is, for instance, if you are a journalist and you are in a hostile area and you don't want your courageous journalism to be intercepted by hostile parties, you could use the Tor network or the I2P network. And so the way that it works is there's a series of proxy servers,
Mhm.
and not only is your data encrypted in another layer, but also each server along the chain only knows the IP addresses of the nodes that it's sending and receiving data to. So the only node that knows the IP address to your computer or your phone is the entry node that you use. And then it goes all along the chain to like an exit node that goes to the server that you're communicating with. And then it goes all the way back, but each of those nodes only knows the neighboring IP addresses in that chain of communication.
Amazing. Now, when you got into writing and you just say, you start talking to people and you start learning from others, and then what made you decide? And this is a really well put together book. I love it because again, it is A to Z. You don't get in and expect a story, maybe per se, that's going to thread throughout the entire book. However, it all has that common theme of the hack. And if you think about it, the last name in the book is Mark Zuckerberg, of course, because well, he's Mr. Z. But if you think about it, if it wasn't for that idea of hacking or creating, we probably wouldn't have Facebook. It might be something else. We kind of what's going on with OpenAI, as people that decided to take what we had and spin it a little in deciding what goes in the book. Was that kind of difficult? Was there some that you said, "Oh, we'll leave them out," or "No, we should include them"? And how did you come up with this full list?
Actually, I wrote a lot of content for the book that didn't end up being made into the book. So I think there are in the neighborhood of just under 300 terms that ended up in the book. But my development editor, Sarah Gray, she was great to work with, by the way, we had to pick and choose some of the entries to go into the book. They were all good and they were all relevant, but O'Reilly didn't want this to be a 600 page book.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but choosing the terminology was really easy. Like as soon as O'Reilly gave me the green light for this book, I came up with like a long list of every relevant term or person or concept I could think of. And I wanted to make a book that you could read in any order. Like you don't have to read it from front to back. You can read it in any order you want. And I wanted to make a book that was ADHD friendly and that you could read in short bursts. And I don't think the concept of like an A to Z book like that is completely original, but it's probably one of the only ones for this particular kind of subject matter. But it really kind of puts together all these key concepts in the development of computer technology and the important people involved and the important entities. And I tried to also make the book really accessible to people who aren't techies.
Yeah,
So there are
exactly.
lots of so there are lots of technical terms in the book, but they're all defined for lay people. So I
I love
wanted
how
to
like I can open it right now and I'll just let's open it right now and I see ham radio. Ham radio has come along because of a love for maybe having something a little different, or even phishing. A lot of people need to know what phishing is all about. So honestly, this type of book could actually help protect people against maybe somebody that is trying to be a cyber criminal and have access to their system, so they understand a little more about some of these terms, so they're not just lost and it's just a word that the media is using.
That would be great if that's the effect the book has, because my background is in cybersecurity research and writing books about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is definitely a theme in this book. I would say maybe it's 25% about cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I also wanted to broaden my horizons from cybersecurity because I really am excited about the history of computing in general. So, but yeah, there is a lot that lay people can learn just about cybersecurity from this book.
I learned about the history of the abacus. And honestly, if anybody ever asked me, like, months ago, I would have said, I don't know, it just moves. Now I know because it's in the book, because it's the way we worked with numbers. It was the earliest computer that was around, the abacus. So
absolutely,
all thanks to the book. Now, the book is available. It's a lot of fun to read. What next for you? You still writing for publications as well? And do you think there'll be another one?
I am on the verge of signing another book deal with a different publisher to write a much more boring sort of technical manual. But my passion, I write boring technical manuals, but my passion is more in books like this that go into like the culture of computing and are a fun read, not just like a tech manual.
Yeah.
So I'm on great terms with O'Reilly, and that's the publisher that gets my fun book concepts. And I think early next year, I don't want to spill my ideas out right now, but I have an idea for another fun book that I can write for O'Reilly.
Oh, that's great. I love O'Reilly. We've worked with them since, the 90s, seriously. And, they've always been great to the show. And when we find something, and again, when I got the notification on this one, I said, oh, I really want to see this. So again, just to be able to go through it. But I have to ask here, Woz, who did the illustration for Woz? Because all of the illustrations in the book, and there are some here, the one for Steve Jobs is really good, but Woz himself, I was like, that's Wozniak.
Yeah, the one thing about this book that I don't deserve much credit for is the illustrations. And we've had like an absolutely stellar team of artists work on my book, which is really flattering. It's so cool to come up with all these ideas in your words and to see visual artists do their own visual art for your ideas. So
yeah, they did a great job.
Most of those hand-drawn illustrations in the book are by a man named Jose Marzan, who actually works for Marvel Comics most of the time.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah. I love that. All right,
again, all the art in this book is original.
Hacker Culture A to Z. It's available now from O'Reilly. They can find it just about anywhere. And you have a website as well. If our listeners want to check you out on the web, what's that website?
Absolutely. So Linktree, linktr.ee,
right?
Not .com, .ee /KIMCRAWLEY. So Linktree, linktr.ee/KIMCRAWLEY.
That is perfect. All right. I have to ask, as a parting question, what would you say is the one piece of technology that excites you the most as we kind of move forward?
Oh, I know that you're probably looking for me to say our new AI developments like ChatGPT and whatnot, but honestly, I don't think I wrote about it in the book, but a couple of weeks ago, I bit the bullet and I bought a Flipper Zero.
Oh, wow. Really?
And I'm in Canada, and the official Flipper website doesn't even sell them to Canada anymore. I had to go to like a retailer who was based in California. And then when the thing crossed the border, I had to pay like $100 tariff on it.
Oh, man. That is so cool.
It's so cool. It's an illegal gray zone right now, but obviously, the US and Canada are still treating it like it's perfectly legal because it did cross the border.
Yeah. A lot of people have no clue of what you talked about, what you said, but it is pretty amazing what it can do. That's the kind of things too that can can kind of push forward technology into other areas as well.
Yeah, so you can, it's a little handheld device. It's about the size of a USB thumbstick, maybe a little bit bulkier. And it has like a display on it, a very small monochromatic display. And it runs like a a digital dolphin that has a personality and all that. So you can kind of use it as like a Tamagotchi, but it
Right.
also runs all kinds of scripts. It has all kinds of readers for different sorts of radio signals and NFC and stuff like that. If you have a card that works with NFC, for instance, you can scan that into your Flipper Zero. Um, there's all kinds of radio signals everywhere around us. You can use it to scan for infrared and sub-gigahertz radio signals, and you can run scripts on the Flipper Zero to try and track radio signals. And some of this is legal if you have the consent of the people whose technologies are involved in what you're trying to penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
But like just like a knife or a lighter, it could be used for illegal things
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
it's
But it is, again, it's, you look at these pieces of technology, and while we're consumed over here, and like you said, with AI and what's going on, there are some other really neat things that are making their way. Some will never ever see. Some are out there. It's important to know that too.
I absolutely had to get a Flipper Zero. So
That is awesome. I love it. Well, listen, next fun book too. Let's chat, or actually even next serious, deep book about technology. Definitely we'll have to keep in touch. You have the coolest Funko collection I have ever seen. So I just really excited to talk to you, Kim. Thanks for coming on the show.
it's an honor. Thanks, Annie. Nice to meet you.